Welcome back to another episode and recording of Genius Days. And we are here once again to talk to you guys this time about trust in relationships. I'm one of your coaches, Sumed Chatterjee. I help you get into the flow state. It's a state of optimal performance, and it helps you feel better and perform better. On the other side, we have Ivan Alejandro Acosta. He is a personal reality coach, a Life Masters coaching. And we have Ryan Gaffer Khan, who is a data aligned consultant, here to help you with your business processes to make more money. How are you guys doing? So, essentially, we were talking a lot about this idea of trust and trusting in ourselves a little bit. And the idea is very interesting, right? The word confidence has the word confide in it. We've got to learn how to trust in ourselves. We've got to learn how to start from a foundation. You see, trust is the best measure. So effectiveness is the best measure of truth, right? So trust has got to work for us in a sense. However, society portrays trust as this thing that, people who speak the truth get killed, or, there's this kind of narrative going around that, that trust is a bad thing, that too much trust is going to skew us away from some kind of X marks the spot, right? And it's interesting to notice that a lot of people talk about trust issues in relationships as well. My whole idea about trust issues is, if it's an issue in your past relationship, you got to work on that yourself, because it's a composite of your past. You can't really go back to that right now and patch things up right now, unless that is your intention. However, trust issues of your past relationship, keep it in the past and also work on it yourself. Don't drag your other partner in there and try and, make. I had to learn that the hard way. And your current relationship with your partner, work on it with them, right? Your trust issues together, and your future partners also. And also, this idea of trust is a muscle, right? Trust has the word rust in it. So you're going to get rusty if you don't use. So use it or lose it. All right. And also, this understanding of trust being linked to oxytocin, which is the love and the trust hormone, which I want to mention very briefly, which is connected to a mother's love, which is connected to a sense of physical touch, which is something that we're lacking nowadays because of lockdown and such. So it's important to notice that, this chemical actually helps us to trust ourselves and actually love ourselves as well. And it is the love hormone, right? So we need to tune into the power of our hearts in order for us to trust ourselves. That's one of the things. Heart breathing is incredibly powerful. So if you can tune into the frequency of your heart and just ground yourself in that way, you'll get to a heart coherence, also called heart rate variability, which will get you to feel much more trustworthy. So all trust is self-trust at the end of the day. All relation is self-relation at the end of the day. So we got to do some of that internal trust work to get the rust off. So thank you for tuning in, for the people watching. And yeah, just throwing it back to any of you guys to see what comes up for you.
I got it. So, what is the purpose of you entering the relationship? Right? What was the purpose? When you think about why you entered relationships when you were younger, could have been out of fun, could have been out of, a lot of times it seems to be out of neediness, out of a wanting of validation. A lot of times we didn't get that validation ourselves from our own parents, and we seek to get that in the outer world. I know I've definitely done that. That's a for sure. I've learned my lesson. It had to be painful, but it's what it is. So before you enter into a relationship, you need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? It's the same reason, like if I'm about to smoke weed, I'd say, why am I about to smoke weed? Right? In a way, you have to question your own motives so that you can find your most authentic why. Now, there is a place where you can enter enter a relationship once you feel whole. And I feel that's the only place that I'm willing to enter into a relationship, because your partner is going to be a 100% mirror of you. They're going to mirror your traumas back to you, right? So me and my relationships, we use each other, right? We use each other because we know that we are the mirror to each other, right? So there actually isn't anything wrong with using people, because you want to be used as well. I want to be useful, right? Especially as a man, I do want to be useful, and whenever like uh like women in relationships become very naggy, it's because they want you to do something. They want you to do something, right? They want you to change somehow, right? Because she sees your potential. She sees that, right? And she's gonna continue to test you over and over and over again for the rest of your fucking life. She's gonna test you. Are you really that man? Are you really that man? I mean, you could ask my girlfriend. She's tested me so many times. And like, I'll give an example. One time she asked me, "Are you afraid that I'm gonna fall in love with one of your girlfriends?" And I said, "No, because she doesn't have the masculine energy that only I can give." Right? So, and if she would have said something like, "Hey, I had a dream that I was having sex with another guy," I would have said, "Why don't you come and show me what you saw in your dream?" Right? So it's always about being in the lead, right? Being in the stronger frame, the strongest view of reality. I She wants to test. The reason women test is because they want to see, are you really strong? Because if you cave, well, then how are you going to protect her? How are you going to keep her safe? So she needs to make sure this is the man. The problem is that she can't just ask you, "Hey, are you the man?" She can't just do it, because most people would just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm the man. I'm the man," you know. But they would probably be lying a lot, right? So she has to see where your threshold is, right? Now, as people pleasers, I know I've been there. A lot of times, somebody pushes a little bit and we move a little bit back. Somebody pushes a little bit, we move a little bit more back. We think like, all right, if we just move a little bit more back, maybe they'll stop, right? And so, like, they push back like three more times, and then finally you're like, okay, all right, chill, right? When the reality should have been, in that moment, in that spot, you need to call it. In that moment, in that spot, you need to say what it was that you didn't like. You can't allow it to continue to move forward. All right. Whoever wants to take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Alejandro. You talked about some interesting points, and what I really liked about it had a lot to do with the mirror. In all our professions, be it as coaches or business owners or simple professionals, in whatever field, it is our reputation that precedes us. It's literally our trust that gets the money. You see it in, let's say, I'm a data analyst full time at a bigger company. The reason they hired me is because they have such a trust in my skills that I can do the job as per required. And it's the same thing you should be doing in your relationships, be it on a more personal level as well as on a professional level or business level. What I have found is he who, if they like you, they will listen. If they trust you, they will actually buy your product as per Joe Nakajo's quotes. Exactly. I saw you smiling. Um, and that's the exact perfect statement because trust equals money. Why do we believe in money? Because it represents the trust that we have to get a result, to get an outcome, be it food, lab dances, any relationship, travels, driving to Las Vegas, you name it. It's because we have such things. Now, if we take it from different perspectives, where would I start when it comes to building trust? Self trust, also known as self leadership, means I can rely on myself to get the job done. You don't have to agree with me, but these are my thoughts. They're just flowing out. If I can trust myself to get the job done, you would almost logically say, I can rely on myself, I can love myself even more. I am leading myself. And to that extent, I can start trusting others. What are your thoughts, Mr. Keel? I see you're thinking. I'm very curious.
Thanks, Ask Ryan. No, I wrote words even before you spoke, and you're mentioning them. That's why I'm nodding, because trust is here's an accumulation of what's going on from my perspective. So you've got reliance, then you've got reliability. So if we go back to Samid, talking about that, or what you just said, ability, and I know Mr. Samid is a word nerd, so check it out. Get some etymology on that, will you, Samid? Reliability. Then we tune in with Ivan. What's to go with the relationship? Why? So there's leverage. What can we leverage? So if we look at you, why did you get accepted? The company said, what can we leverage? He has skills we can leverage. We trust in his reliability to perform. What are the privileges? What are the outcomes? What are the benefits? Then there's conveniences. What is the convenience of me being in this relationship or this setup? And I think it was Samid in the beginning, potentially they rely on other people too much, then they feel the trust has been broken. Yeah. Or accountability, they're holding other people accountable for an outcome. So I'm putting trust in you. Oh, you let me down. Yeah, but you're holding me accountable for what you have the ability to do. And then it's the confidence, what the trust you said about trust, why people buy, because I have confidence in the outcome meeting my expectations. So I think Grant Cardone says it's not about people buy from you, whatever. They just trust that the money in your wallet is better off than theirs. And so that's my contributions for now. I think it's privileges, conveniences, leverage. What can we leverage? Reliance, accountability. Potentially people put too much trust in those. What would be the word, gentlemen, for that? Reliance and account features of being in a relationship. Would you call these features? See, I'm relying on you, and you get to a stage where you want me to do everything. You want me to look after the kids, clean the house, bring home the fucking bacon, do all these things, right? But you keep complaining. It's time you trust in what I can do. Either you trust I have the ability to lead the relationship where you want it to go, or you have to trust in yourself in knowing what's right for you and say, that's it. This is not healthy. It's not a healthy relationship. You got to get go and trust that the outcome is going to serve you later down the track. Whatever it is, even if you're in a job, the relationship you have with your employer, that is another good way. Maybe we could go from there.
I'll take it over for just a second. Things that hit me had a lot to do with what's even within your power. That's one of the things that came up. Now, what I mean by that is the Stoic principle of tr- being trustworthy doesn't necessarily mean you'll be happier. It simply means you are reliable. And when you look at it from a relationship perspective, be it business, personal, love related, lust related, I absolutely agree. It's all outcome dependent. And what I would like to add is it is not within our power as individuals to have power over their expectations. And here's where, within relationships, communication starts to play an extremely big role. Sumit, what are your thoughts on that?
And I just I looked up the etymology of rely, Mr. Neil. And it's awesome, man. It says that the original sense was gathered together, or turn to associate with, depend upon, with confidence, and the original from the French relier, which means to bind together. So yeah, that's really interesting because again, it's about that connection, not that attachment. And I think the word for me personally is not features, but it's framework, because we have to decide a framework for ourselves in order for us to know, is this the right relationship for me? And it comes down to supporting each other through similar values. So if you're in a relationship with similar values, that's going to grow those values. They become values in action, which creates the character of the couple, of the business partnership, whatever the relationship is, right? So it's important to also note that males and females have different communication styles, right? We know this. The locker room is very different to girls' sleepover, right? We know this. It's very common knowledge, but we don't realize how much of a difference there is actually. Like, I'll give you a personal example. Like, I've had it many instances in my life where in my past relationships, she wanted to vent, right? And my personal understanding is when she's venting, it's up to me to try to solve that. Kind of like the masculine mindset is like, oh, there's a problem. Let me immediately go and try to fix that. You know, let me be the fireman that goes like, boom, right into it and, you know, solve it for her. And that's not what she's looking for at times. She just wants someone to be the space holder, you know, understand her, maybe reflect a few ideas off of her to get her to her own decision at times. And yeah, the frame aspect, I mean, frame is the way you see reality. A framework is that reality within a process. So understanding that, you know, what is your idea of conscious relationship? You know, what does that mean to you when I say the word conscious relationship, you know? Because for a lot of people, they will start to put labels on it. Oh, it means I can see a lot of people at once. Oh, it means I can, you know, go and start my soul cycle class tomorrow. Oh, it means, you know, we have different labels for that for every individual person. So we've got to decide what is our own individual framework and not society's framework, not the Hallmark card, not the Valentine's Day, not the Disney movie, not the Bollywood, but our framework. So I love this term verify because it's like, you know, we give people blue checks, right? We've got to give ourselves a blue check. We've got to verify ourselves. We got to be like, no, I am relevant. I am verified. I am truthful. I'm trustworthy. And I and Ivan, we interviewed a relationship coach once called Relationship Badass. I believe she changed her name, Nikki Sunshine. And she called it Freelationship, which I thought was really interesting. And she stated this idea of imago theory, which is we reflect back our childhood wounds, like those, we are in relationships so that they trigger our childhood wounds so that we can heal them, right? So we seek partners in order for us to actually heal ourselves, which is an interesting theory. And it goes with a lot of couples consulting models, right? Counseling models in that way. Also interesting, the word free, which is something that I believe the masculine craves in a relationship, is freedom, and the feminine craves love. So it's interesting because the word free, frei in German, means love. So that means it's one of the same. And this is the way that I perceive it, obviously. Right? Yeah, it's kind of a little bit reductionist, but you know, love is friendship on fire. So it's about recognizing that inner spark, that sexual tension, that chemistry, that whatever that is, that magnetism that the woman has and the electric nature that the man has comes together like a battery to charge each other up. So we have all these terms in culture, other half, you know, sweep her off off of her feet, love is blind, you know, all these terms that tell us what love is. However, this is the issue, right? A lot of honeymoon periods happen and then it goes back to the same old thing, right? We chase the high, but then can we maintain love is a bigger question. So I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that.
I can tune in real quick. It's interesting how you bring up love, because before this came up, I had a realization through my own experiences that love is not a word, it's an energy. Because you may have this scenario in relationships that you don't tell me you love me enough, or you never hardly enough. So I said, I don't need to tell you, right? Because that's a social conditioning right there. You think if a man says, I love you, that he loves you. That's incorrect. For me, it's an energy. How do I portray myself? How do I communicate to you through what I do for you or what is available? So it's an energy. Then we go back to Samit's lovely work, the etymology. Dependence is what came up, which I was like, whoa, that's really interesting, because that fits into what we're talking about. So the question, and I'll let someone segue with this, is what are you constantly depending on in a relationship, whatever framework it is, business, social, intimate, what are you depending on? And that would also tie in with, what is this relationship built on? So if it's built on something, what is the dependence? Because you hear the word codependence. Some people just can't handle being on their own. So why is that? And I'll let you gentlemen take it away from there.
I think
Yeah. So
yeah, go for it, brother.
talk
Yeah.
about framework, right? Um, I say don't fall in love with someone's potential. Don't fall in love for who they could be. Don't love them for who they could be. Love them for who they are in that moment. Know that they can change, but that you do not need them to change. You are not in that relationship to change them. Don't focus on the other person. Focus on the relationship. Because the relationship is you plus her equals relationship. Relationship is the energy that you both are sharing. If you only focus on the person individually, you will not be working on the relationship. And since the beginning of my relationship, I've said, we don't work on each other. Like no, that's not the right thing. It was I don't work on her, I work on myself. Right? If I want something to change in the relationship, I'm the one that needs to change first. I cannot ask of something that I do not do myself, or that I do not have the equal energy to gives back. Now, most relationships, the way they are, like I'd say, even just young people, they're like addictive relationships, right? And they're very much extremely bonded by sex. Sex is very, very strong bond. It'll bond you very tightly, and it'll make you think that you love that person. But in reality, it's just the chemicals that release. Now, I'm here to hold space for you, and you're here to hold space for me. That's all it really is here. That it's not like you said earlier, Sumet. I'm not here to solve your problems. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to hold space for you to solve your own problems. Mhm. Now, all right, I want to ask everybody real quick. What do you think is the most alpha thing that you can do? Right? Just like unmute yourself and shout it out.
Enjoy life to the max. and truly come from that place of ease, I think that for me personally would be the
Just
most
like one
love language.
sentence. Just like one sentence.
You move in the direction of what you want.
Yeah, I would second that in stay committed and true to your ambitions.
Oh, what about you, Nev? If you can type or speak it. Personally, what I think is the most alpha thing that really anybody can do, men and women, is to be honest. Because through honesty, you create intimacy. And intimacy is when you are seen, is when someone can see you as you for what you are. All, even your toxic traits, all that stuff, they should know as well. That's because it's that in itself is dangerous to be seen, to expose yourself to this person. They're going to know your secrets. But if you're going to be in a relationship with them, they should know your secrets. And they should not shame you for your secrets. Again, they should just hold space for you to work through those things. Now, through the honesty, the things that I would recommend in any relationship is one, asking for what you need, right? Actually, I really need this. If you need it, it's your want, it's your need. Like, feel comfortable asking, right? And number two, I would say learn each other's love languages, right? Take the test, right? There's the love languages test. Just look that up and find out what's your love language, what's their love language, so that you can communicate to them in a way that hits their soul. And that's intimacy, when they can see you even like that, right? Um, that's all I've got for right now.
That's amazing, brother. I love what you said about love languages because I was just thinking that. So you brought it up. I'm glad you brought it up. So for anyone, do the test and get your partner to also do the test because, yeah, you're going to understand about not only the way that you can take care of yourself and your own self-love, because if you know your love language, you got to use it with yourself too, not just tell your partner. You know what I mean? So if it's words of affirmation, you got to tell yourself words of affirmation. Right? If it's physical acts of service, you got to treat yourself. Okay. So the love languages are very interesting because we in childhood were lacking those love languages, which is why it is our love language. So if your parents didn't tell you words of affirmation growing up, that's going to be yours. Or if you didn't get physical touch growing up, then that's probably going to be yours, right? So so in that sense, it's very interesting because what is lacking is actually the strength here, right? That heals, which is a very powerful paradox. And the idea of a healthy relationship is an interdependent one, right? Not codependent, but where both people are supporting each other. So it's not a codependent would be like her friends are your friends, like the only things you guys do are together, like it's fully dependent on that other person. Your level of happiness and sense of self is equated with them, right? A lot of poets know this idea of love being an energy and a unity, like especially philosophers too, like Jean-Paul Sartre. He said 1+1 = 1, in reference to love. So it's that idea of like, okay, yeah, you're one team, you're one unit, right? And so we've understood this idea of love being this thing that is this warm fuzzy feeling. And I agree with you, Ivan, in a sense where it is this endorphin rush for sure. And that's why we use terms like, head over heels, because I mean, why would you fall over if you're not, so enveloped by this feeling, right? And so in culture, you're right, a lot of people lead these addictive love lives, and it's important to instead create your love storyline. And I would highly recommend for the men listening to read women's erotic novels for language, okay? For language patterns, for for all sorts of deep insights into the way that the feminine mind works, and the alliteration and the innuendos and the symbolism in that. It's just powerful. And for women listening, I would highly recommend you look into some of the comics, like adult comics that guys read. Um, that will give you an indication of how the male brain works. Okay. So when you can come from that angle where you're both doing the work, that makes it that conscious relationship. I have something called conscious relationship green flags. I'm going to read out some of these and see if any of these at all resonate with any of you. Okay. So green flag number one is, I'll just read a few of them. Learning about my partner's past is important to me. Okay. Sometimes I'm afraid, but I'm willing to lean in and do the work when things feel hard. Vulnerability isn't always easy, but it's the only way through. Yeah. I'm willing to hold space and listen without trying to fix and control your feelings. My self-care is a priority. I'm reading a few more. I'm learning to be more curious than defensive. All right, I can go on. If you guys want all of these, let me know in my email, Flowzone Academy. I can send them over to you.
Hey, so Pamchi, can you talk or not?
I can.
What's up then?
I'm good. Just laying on the sun and
All right.
listening.
So for everybody who doesn't know, Pamela here, Pamela Costa is my girlfriend, wife, soulmate, twin flame, whatever you want to call it, life partner. Um, is there anything that you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to point out that perhaps that you've noticed or that you've learned along this way as we've been building this relationship? We've been apart for over a year now. Because of this COVID dumbass restrictions, can't fly, can't see each other. We've been forced to really rely on clear communication, trust, and honesty to build this relationship into an unstoppable, unbreakable fucking mountain. So, what would you like to say about
There
that?
is there is really a lot to be said because sometimes I feel like there are things that you can't really explain, especially like how did we actually stay so committed to one another, and it was, yes, through communication and um I guess we share um we share that space, and where we heal and we are willing to grow. And what was the what was the what was the biggest lesson for me is that love can be really from it can be from any space if it's a true love, because um let me let me figure out my words because I'm
So I think
just
what you're
like,
saying, Pamela, let me see. Are you saying that it doesn't matter how far apart you are from someone, distance or not? Like
yes,
if it's
exactly,
the
because
most
so many
authentic
people.
love, if it's the
Yes,
most authentic love, it will prevail, right? And if your
yes,
relationship takes a tumble or takes a fall because you weren't there or whatever, or you wanted to hang out with your boys and hang out with your friends, and your relationship takes a toll, and that's an unhealthy version of relationship. um and for sure, me and Pamela are very much into self-help, very much developing ourselves constantly. And if at some point, like, either one of us doesn't, it stops the journey and the other one continues, the other one will leave the other one behind. And
Exactly.
the relationship won't work out anymore because you need to be evolving at the same pace as your partner.
Yes. And clear communication, honesty, as we said, and also like the emotional intelligence. And
Is there
yeah,
any
and really
examples?
like
Hey, babe, is there any examples from experiences?
um so for example, I will say sometimes when sometimes when I feel I'm sorry, I don't know why why my
It's
who I
okay,
can
babe.
really express myself. But yeah, I'm just chilling and I was just in my chill mode, and just from nowhere now I have to speak, so I'm sorry for that. Right. And let me see.
Or just say
Can you
challenges.
ask
There's a
me like
challenge.
a
There's the
question?
challenges that we've been through.
Um, the biggest challenge for me was when sometimes we didn't really communicate, right, and we didn't express ourselves. I know if I can share like that story when we didn't communicate, and yeah, and it ended up in like when you block me, and when that happened and you just needed a space, and I was just confused when you told me I just need some space, and I thought like what happened, like what went wrong, and that was the moment when I needed to realize like the challenge was what is really what really space is, and how, like, how you need to respect someone's space when they really need it, and how you shouldn't be taking it personally, right? And because sometimes when we say I need space, and I need space to kind of like figure out some stuff on my own, then the other one person will start overthink and will go into a space which is like on a completely different, you know it's completely different than what the other person is working on innerly. And I guess that was the challenge. The biggest challenge for me was to yeah, realize when you need space. And also jealousy is one of the things that um was a big challenge for me, lesson. And yeah, about jealousy, I guess I needed to realize that jealousy is sometimes something that we see kind of like it's innerly. It's it's when you feel not enough, or when you have like when you have your own insecurities. And jealousy is just mm, it's not it's not healthy as some people think in the relationship is, like when you have to kind of like that obsessive control. And that was another one thing in our relationships, because I know that you want to be with multiple women, right? So for me it was a big challenge to you know get your real point. But by you speaking to me and telling me what you really what is your purpose, that was you know amazing.
Mm, very nice, actually. Before I pass it on to someone else, I want to continue on what you said about space. Now, it's very interesting that between me and Pamela, there's a lot of space. She's in London, she's in England, I'm in Texas, I'm in America. There's a lot of space, right? So it's not just like physical space that we need. Even still, when you're long distance, you can still sometimes feel like they're invading into your space, and you need more mental room. It's what it really is. That's what space is. Um, and I would say that the way to grow in a relationship is to go through challenges. You have to go through challenges together. And that's the way that you're going to build and strengthen the relationship. Go do, something that you've never done before together. Go and do a difficult challenge. Go do a 5K together. Or, these are just simple ways that you can get challenged. For me, this distance has been the challenge itself, right? Which has forced us to grow. Um, and yeah, I can pass it on now.
Yeah, I'll take over real quick. That was fantastic, Ivan and Pamela. That's powerful. I didn't expect it, but I very much appreciated that conversation. I very much appreciated the conversation. And what you ended on was, even in the professions that we do, it is the challenges that we have to undergo, be it in the profession itself or with the clients, is what keeps the trust strong. We get to know each other, we get to work with each other. And it's very funny how, as per the teachings of Kabirion, what works for one field works very much so for another. So that's my 2 cents. Sumit, your thoughts.
You know, something that was really important for me to hear was that idea of jealousy. And I don't know if that's like a Scorpio thing, because you guys are both Scorpios as far as I know. But yeah, I've definitely felt that feeling of jealousy in my past relationships. And I think that ultimately it's also learning how to not think of the fact that you're possessing your partner in some way, but again, being that space holder, right? Like you guys said, to be the container for each other's energy. And I think I heard this once, but you can't put a butterfly in a jar, um, which I think is an incredible metaphor for this idea of jealousy, because anyone can try this visualization out. I like to do this sometimes, not just for a relationship, but just for if you have an attachment to anything. Let's say you're really attached to your phone or a car or like a new dress that you really want. To imagine that you're window shopping and seeing this item in front of you, right? And then just poof, it's gone right in front of your eyes. And then it reappears. And then poof, it disappears again. And then it reappears much brighter, and then it disappears again. And what you're doing is you're desensitizing yourself to that feeling of being pulled by something and being like almost falling in love rather than rising in love, right? So focusing on the feeling of, I'm not losing this thing, it's just reemerging again and again. And it's the same lesson that introduces itself in different ways, right? So when we can see that, we're just a collection of stories, or just a collection of roles that we play, we're just a collection of these thought loops that are being, mirrored in each other's behavior, it becomes much more fun. And I think, staying with somebody that ultimately has similar shadows to you is an incredibly deep, profound, intimate relationship, because, if you guys have similar things that you can resonate on and attune to, attunement, I think, is one of the secrets to a great relationship, to be matched into a similar frequency in terms of coming from the same world. Because if you have Mars, which is a combat energy, and Venus, which is a love energy, coming together, there's going to be this chaotic dance. But it's in that dance that we learn so much about ourselves. And I think it's even more, spiritual at times than a Vipassana retreat, right? It's like being in a relationship is like the ultimate form of spiritual maturation. What do you guys think of that?
I can take it away from here. So thanks to Avan for bringing his girlfriend in on the conversation. That was pretty good. And so there's a few things here, and I'll finish with a statement. So what I picked up in the conversation was congruency in personal evolutions, because I am acknowledging that in my own relationship, there's just this huge fucking gap. So I think that's important. If you're looking for what's important, that's definitely important. Congruency in your personal evolution. Then expression, I think Pamela said expression, and then that would be is the release of thoughts. It's so healthy. Whatever's going on in here, just release it. Like Ivan said, an alpha thing to do is just be honest. Speak your mind. Get it out. Then don't attach yourself to the outcome. Then what a lot of people are doing, I feel, just from my own perspective and definition, is many people putting too much reliance and dependence on the conformity of social definitions, because we're sort of all talking about love here and what is love, and we can get lost in that, because there's a social definition. It's meant to represent this. Or if you're an employee and an employer, what is the conformity of the social definitions behind that? I like what you said, Smin, mirroring of thought loops. I really, really like that. And with this, when you talk about ebb and flow and the congruency and the harmony and frequency, this is like the seesaw concept. I don't know if someone's already established it, but it was like, you're in a relationship. You're both, yeah, this is so much fun. As soon as someone jumps off, bang, and you're like, what the fuck just happened there? Instead of, hey, I'm fed, I'm over this, I'm going to hop off now. It makes it a little bit easier. And in closing, how do you get over the social definitions? How do you get out of that? Well, I would prioritize your own personal evolution. Make that a priority. And riding on what Samir said, let go of the attachments that your identity leans on. Right? Because when that person is no longer in your life, or you have this space, you feel empty because you've been attaching an identification to the other person and whatever they bring into the relationship. So when they go, you feel lost, right? You feel empty. And that comes back to create your own personal evolution. Make that a priority. So whatever happens in a relationship, whatever it is, business, employee, intimate, it's not going to impact you. I'm not going to say you're going to not feel sad or a little bit, oh, that's a bummer, but it won't be as dramatic as if you didn't do these things. And a little statement to finish off is that our environments, you could call this a thought concept, that our environments are an accumulation of the echoes that permeate from the language within our spirit.
Wow, that's incredible. I gotta write that one down.
You want me to say that again?
Yes, please.
Our environments are an accumulation of the echoes that permeate from the language within our spirit. So whatever's going on within you, we look at like what's been going on through this whole conversation, environments and what's happening, that it's the echoes that are permeate, that are seeping out over an accumulation of time. Because whatever's happening in your reality didn't just happen. I think it was Pamela said something, or Samid is someone talking about the childhood, right? So that's where that language started. And have you been adjusting the language, modifying it? Personal evolution. So then you can go and sit back for a little bit and go, you know what? This is okay. I'm cool because I understand everything is an accumulation. It's a residual effect of what's been permeating out of me with the language that's been in my spirit. Either it's been, corruptive and destructive, or elevating and creating. Boom, that's me.
Beautiful. That's incredible. So, I'm reminded of these two differences, radical honesty versus brutal honesty. I think this is a huge thing. Brutal honesty is like word vomit, right? You feel something, you want to let it out, right? Onto the other person, you displace it, you project it, you suppress it. You don't transmute it, right? You just you don't want to deal with that. And so radical honesty is this idea of you really taking ownership for your feelings, saying, these are my feelings, like these are my hands and my legs, right? This is my feelings. This is what I'm going through right now. This is my internal experience. It might not be the same for you. And I think that that radical honesty bit is really powerful because, let's say that you're in a relationship and you just simply tell your partner that, babe, I feel like venting right now. Will you just hold space for me and just hear me out? And you're allowed to say, no, I'm at work. No, can I do this in 5 minutes? You're allowed to state if you are willing to accept that permission slip, and I think that, yeah, it does come down to that clear communication, which is sometimes hard because, the way that guys handle feelings and women handle feelings is also another different story, right? Like I notice a lot of guys, they get drunk to this point of like Zen-like monastery state, right? When they're just like, they're like blacked out, right? And I see a lot of women drinking to radiate their femininity, dancing on tables or, having being much more in their freedom and their feminine, wilderness. And so even in the way that we handle different substances and intoxicants tells us the difference in this mechanism that's happening within our own bodies. And it's quite difficult to understand this energy at times. Even places have this masculine feminine frequency, right? Like you go to Hawaii, which is a very feminine flowing environment, right? With even the culture like aloha and all the concepts reflecting that way of life, right? So even a location can be, like Mr. Neil said, I believe you said, the echoes of your language, right? The echoes are going to leave that ripple effect, right? So you can be a little pebble or it can be a boulder. But sometimes we chase the boulder. We're like, oh, I won't let it fall all the way in, right? Something like that. But we've got to allow the ripples to happen. And, instead of drowning in the emotions, just floating on top of them, like the whole imagery of Jesus walking on water, he's walking above his emotions, in that kind of analogy way. Because, yeah, emotions are always associated with water. And so to build trust in a relationship, you're going to have to come from the container being full, not from the bottom of the cup, right? Because a lot of relationships can get draining when we're not taking care of we're not taking care of ourselves, right? Our self-care. So when another person's traumatic event, reflects us in that moment, I'll give you a personal example, right? I'm a very creative person. I leave things here and there, kind of messy. Whereas in my past relationship, she's very hygienic, right? To the point where it's like OCD a little bit, right? To leaving everything clean, always keep the dishes, that mentality, that frame. So obviously we reflect each other's shadows in a sense, right? She sees me as this guy who's messy. I see that cleanliness, and it's immediately this fire energy of like back and forth. However, if you can learn when to be yang and when to be yin, even as a man, like you got to learn that, okay, she's at her workplace. I have to be yin right now because I'm not the boss in that location yet, right? So then when she steps out, then you lead her to the restaurant or whatever. Like being able to fine tune and calibrate this reliance, this stability with each other is that helpful state of beingness and playfulness with each other. So yeah, we can go on for a really long time in terms of this topic. Any final words?
Yeah.
Any wants to? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alejandro, you go
I
first.
want to mention framework really quick. It's gonna be short. So at the beginning of your relationship is when you need to set the rhythm for what it means. You need to both be in agreement of what kind of relationship this is, right? Both of you need to agree on it, right? Is it going to be fuck buddies? Is it going to be a romantic relationship? Like, what are you looking for? And it needs to be established since day one, right? Since day one. That's it. I told you it was going to be short.
Awesome. Now my perspective is slightly different, more from the individual's perspective instead of the more collaborative point. I absolutely agree with what Mr. Neil said, and I believe also Sumit, when it comes to the relationship, is a mirror of your own internal world. So anything that you have within will be reflected as such. I have seen it in past relationships. And at the same time, a relationship is also meant to help yourself even further. And that's where the collaboration comes into play. Thus, the relationship is an extension of your character, is what I believe. So that those are my ending notes. Sumit.
Yeah, man, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, create your own love story, guys. You know what I mean? Of course, it's not going to be, word for word, dialogue per dialogue, but at least keep the framework open to at least improvise within those rules, right? Because first we learn the rules, then we can improvise and play the instrument, right? So, what are the rules to being in a relationship? Well, you get to decide those, decide meaning the word cut, to cut out all other options that aren't serving you. And really understanding, to sum it all up, the word relationship has the word relate in it. So you got to relate to each other in some way. That relating is important in terms of finding similar interests, finding things that, you both can chime in on and learn from each other in different ways. And oftentimes you'll find that the things that you're lacking in yourself, that other person has, which is quite interesting. I've noticed this in many ways. And so when you make it this holographic learning simulation, right? It's more fun. It's more like, okay, what can I learn today from this, this feminine energy that's there to replenish me at the end of the day? Or as a man, like, or as a woman, you would say, like, when I can finally put my shoulder, on what, when I can finally put my head on a shoulder and just feel safe to be feminine, right? So this is an awesome topic, guys. Learned a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week again, another Sunday. Happy Easter. Happy Easter Sunday for those listening, and may the flow be with you. May you never be the same
Say,
again.
I'd say everybody, tell your friends, invite your friends next time, because these topics are really great. These things that we're talking about are very important. And you guys can see this ain't no bullshit. This ain't our first rodeo. You know what I mean? So invite your friends next time. Have a good Sunday, everybody. Happy Easter.
For sure. And just one final note for the people listening, I have a program that's just $7. So like essentially it's a cup of coffee. So if you are interested, it is 7 weeks of chakra clearing and taking out the emotional gunk. And essentially I'm doing this because I'm testing out this method myself. So I would like people who want to do the prototype version of this to help them out with any kind of traumas or repressed patterns or different things that they're going through, to help them release that. And I would just ask for a testimonial in return. So if you are interested, shoot me a message on Instagram at Flowzone Academy. Thank you.
Awesome, dear listeners, and of course, viewers. This has been the Genius Days, and I welcome you to join us next week. Good day.